Question? Anybody? Yes, I did.
Hi, it's more of a request. Could you do impersonations?
Impersonations of what?
Yoda, Captain
Can I do impersonations?
Okay, I have to tell you, I do a really good Yoda. And I shouldn't say that because if it stinks and I do it, then you're like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. I can't believe he thinks that's good. I wish I had my DVD with me. I have a DVD that I play sometimes in my Q&A sessions where I took a scene from Star Wars, from The Empire Strikes Back, and I ripped out all of the sound, and then I replaced all the music, and I replaced all the sound effects, and I even put Luke Skywalker's voice back in, but I left Yoda's part out so that I could do it live. And so sometimes when I do Q&A sessions, I'll actually like put it on and I'll do the scene live. It's the scene where they're in Yoda's little hut for the first time after Luke crashes on Dagobah. And he's like, let's see. Luke says, I don't understand why we can't just go see Yoda now. Patience. For the Jedi, it is time to eat as well. Yes. And he's like, I am wondering, why you would become Jedi? Well, mostly because of my father, I guess. Oh, father, powerful Jedi, which do. Powerful Jedi. What are you talking about? You don't even know who I am. How could you know who my father is? I don't even know what I'm doing here. Remember that? Yeah. And then it gets quiet, the music starts, and Yoda says, I cannot teach him. The boy has no patience. He will learn patience. He's too old. Yes, too old to begin the training. And then what is it? Well, anyway, you get the idea. So, yeah, I'm a big Star Wars nerd too, clearly, apparently. But, you know, it's funny that you would ask about Captain Kirk too. Because in Star Trek Continues, my desire is for the audience to feel like they are watching the original series continue. There's no reason to remake Captain Kirk. Bill Shatner is the perfect Captain Kirk. You know what I mean? He owns that role. And I mean, no offense to Chris Pine, but you know what I mean? We don't need any other Captain. So my desire was to impart and embody as much of Mr. Shatner's Captain Kirk as possible. So I do it as best I can. And I make sure I don't push it too far. But I'm a nerd. I'm a big nerd. But you know what? I'll tell you something funny. I have a guy on set, our first AD, our first assistant director of Star Trek Continues. I took him aside before we started shooting our very first episode. I took him aside privately and I said, listen, Chris, tell me if I'm going too far. Let me know if I'm doing too much of that. So I gave him permission to let me know. Because I would never want to stereotype it, you know, I would never want it to. Wow, there must be somebody important coming in after me, because look at all these people that are coming in the room. Hello, hi. What? Sword fighting? Is it in here?
It just finished.
Oh, cool. Question, anyone? Here, anybody that hasn't asked one yet, we'll get to you next.
What's the difference between voice acting and game voice acting?
You mean like anime voice acting and video game voice acting?
Video games, yeah.
The two big differences that come to mind immediately. First of all, when you're voicing a video games have possible outcomes, right? So when you voice a video game, you have to record all the possible outcomes. Like if your character goes this way, a whole bunch of different things happen. But if you choose this path, you have to record all the possible scenarios. So that's one big difference. Another difference is that an anime series lasts over a long period of time. Whereas a video game, you can usually record in like a week at the most. So you're in and you're out. Another big difference is that video games, obviously there are a lot of what they call in-game fighting sounds. Like all of the little sounds that the characters make when you throw a punch, or you take a punch, or you get kicked, or you fall down a steep hill. And you have this long list of different reactions that you have to record. It'll say, getting kicked in the stomach, small. Getting kicked in the stomach, medium. Getting kicked in the stomach, big. Falling from 10 feet, falling from 30 feet. I mean, every possible sound, you know, like small punch, big punch, small damage, big damage. And you have to give them 3 or 4 of every one, so they don't sound all exactly the same. Like if you just record one time going, well, you don't want to play a game where after 10 times you're like, God, I don't want to hear that sound ever again in my life. So you have to record like 5 or 6. You know, and all these different sounds. And then they mix them up to keep it interesting, I guess. Question? Anybody?
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
So you were talking about how you didn't want to overdo Shatner's character. So have you asked him what he thinks about your role?
No, I haven't.
Too scared?
Yes, too scared. Too scared. You know what? I haven't, and I don't even know if he's seen it. I would be honored. You can imagine. I mean, the 12-year-old in me would be like over the moon to imagine William Shatner watching and enjoying, something that I did, playing that role. But can we make a deal? Can we make a deal together? I want you guys to go home. A lot of you haven't seen it. Let's do something. Go home tonight after the convention and watch an episode. And then come back tomorrow and tell me what you think. Will you do that? It's online, it's free to watch. The first one is a sequel to an original series episode. If anyone remembers, there was an episode of the original series where they met the Greek god Apollo. Remember that one? Where the Enterprise is floating through space and this giant hand grabs the ship. And you come to find out that it's the Greek god Apollo. And that all the Greek gods from ancient Greece were actually aliens. And they landed on Earth. And because they had special powers, the Greeks thought they were gods. And they worshipped them. But as mankind developed, they stopped worshiping them. And so all the gods left, except Apollo. He hung out on a planet out in space waiting for mankind to come out into space and then worship him again. Of course, the Enterprise, having no part of that, Captain Kirk's like, we're not going to worship you. Sorry, not happening. It was a really great episode. We did a sequel to that episode, which was our very premiere, our first episode, and the man who played Apollo 45 years ago reprises his role as Apollo in our series. His name is Michael Forrest, and it's awesome. Our second episode is about an Orion slave girl who stows away on the Enterprise seeking asylum because she doesn't want to be returned to the slave trade industry. And her owner, this big mean guy, comes out after her to claim his property. Guess who plays the slave trader who comes out after her? Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk. Now, in case you haven't put it together in your mind, what color are Orions? They're green. What color is the Incredible Hulk? Boom, green. It's awesome. It's great. Wait till you see Lou Ferrigno in this role. He's perfect. The third episode is a continuation of an original series episode, which was arguably one of the best episodes ever, the one called Mirror Mirror, where they went to the parallel universe and everyone was real barbaric and they advanced in rank by killing people in front of them, and Spock had the goatee. Remember that?
Yeah.
At the very end of that episode, they switched places, and the good Kirk and his landing party went back to their Enterprise, and the bad Kirk went back to his Enterprise. But my question was, what happened when the bad Kirk returned to his Enterprise? Because at the very end of that episode, Captain Kirk, the good Kirk, challenges the mirror goatee Spock to make a difference in their universe. He does that classic Captain Kirk speech at the end, where he says to Spock, you realize that things can't continue the way they are in this universe. It's going to fall apart eventually. And Spock agrees that it will. So Kirk says, why don't you make a difference? Why don't you be the captain of this Enterprise, Mr. Spock? And then he leaves. So I remember as a little kid, I was like, I wonder what happened. I wonder what happened when me and Captain Kirk went back to this Enterprise. Did Spock do anything with that challenge? Great story idea. So that's what our third episode is. It's a continuation of that episode. It picks up right where evil Kirk returns to his ship, and the whole story is about Spock and what he does with the challenge to overthrow Captain Kirk. All free to watch. Check them out. We just have a couple more minutes. Question? I gotta ask the doctor a question. Don't you? Your question.
Okay, first my name is Mohammed and welcome to Dubai.
Thank you.
I like this. No, my question is, may sound stereotypical to nerds like us, but I just want to hear it. Like, can you do a conversation between Edward Elric and Broly?
Well, there's a problem with that.
Yes.
Broly doesn't have enough words in his vocabulary to have a conversation. Any Dragon Ball Z fans in here? Broly is the baddest of the bad. He's the coolest. But he doesn't say much. He says Kakarot. That's about all he ever says. So it would be impossible to have a conversation, but I have to tell you something really quick. Your cosplay reminded me of something. In about a month and a half, we're premiering episode 4 of Star Trek Continues at Phoenix Comic-Con in Phoenix, Arizona. The guest star for our 4th episode is a man named Colin Baker, who played the 6th Doctor. How cool is that? The 2 most iconic sci-fi shows in television history combining. Doctor Who is our guest star in our next Star Trek Continues episode. 3 minutes? Question. This gentleman with the amazing t-shirt. Oh my gosh, 3 amazing t-shirts! Yes. Oh. Yes.
Julie question. Do you like Star Wars or Star Trek?
I can't believe you just asked me that question. Did you hear that? He dared to ask me Star Wars or Star Trek.
We love Star Trek, but Star Wars...
You know what I'm going to say? Here's my answer. They're 2 completely different things. I mean, very different in their approach to sci-fi. I don't understand why people feel like you have to pick one or the other. You know? I don't think you need to. I mean, I think they get along just fine. And also let me say that Star Trek was first. Star Trek predated Star Wars. But you know, the whole, like, and I'll tell you something else. You know how people talk about Star Wars being sci-fi?
Yes!
Well, sci-fi traditionally is futuristic, right? It takes place in the future, right? In some future. What are the words that come up on the screen at the beginning of every Star Wars movie? What, starting in? No, you're skipping the first line. A long time ago. What? Excuse me, what? It's not in the future. It's in the past, somewhere out there in space. And of course, Star Wars kind of pioneered the idea of a dirty galaxy. You know what I mean? Rusty ships, beat up equipment, a lived-in universe. Up to that point, sci-fi was very squeaky clean and white and glass and chrome and you know, all of that. But But Star Wars pioneered that look. And then almost, from that on, almost entirely, whether it was Alien or, oh my gosh, right out of my head, what was the, that Harrison Ford did? The Blade Runner, on and on. They adopted that look of a more realistic, lived-in universe. But I would never pick one. If I had to pick, Star Trek. Boom, done, Star Trek. So, but I think they're mutually exclusive. I don't think you have to pick one or the other. Do we have one last question?
That's all the time.
Is it really? Really? Promise? I'll give you money if you let me stay longer.
I
Yeah.
only accept time.
Okay, well listen, here's the thing. I'm gonna be here all weekend. I've got signing times at my table. I would love to meet all of you. I'm very, very honored to be here. It's a pleasure to join you, and I hope you'll all come by and say hello. Okay?
Round of applause for Vic.